In this chapter 8, we're going to start on step 6 in the strategy process, which is crafting business level strategies. When we go to the strategy phase of this process, as I said before, we're going to use a funnel approach. You can think of it as a funnel approach. We're going to develop broad corporate level strategies which have to do with the direction of the company and then get more and more specific and narrow. So from the corporate level to the business level to each functional area within the organization, and eventually all the way down to the individual employee level, so that individual employees have their own objectives and know what they need to do to help the firm accomplish its long-term goals. All right, so when we're dealing with the business level strategies, we are going to decide, first of all, which of Porter's generic competitive strategies would be best given our current competitive situation and given our strengths versus our competitors. So you have really 4 choices with a 5th one that's a blend, the best value. And just so that you can have a picture in your mind, an example of each strategy, if we were looking at the chain retail industry, cost leadership, of course, the first one that comes to most people's minds would be Walmart in terms of cost leadership. And as we said before, cost leadership is probably the most difficult strategy to maintain over time. Many believe that it's the best strategy and not necessarily so, and that depends on whether you really have a cost strength. In other words, your cost of operations compared to your competitors is in fact lower, or it's a strategy that you will not be able to maintain over time. An example of a differentiation strategy in the retail industry might be a Nordstrom or a Saks Fifth Avenue. A best value strategy then would be, the best example I can think of is a Target. In fact, best value is something that they use in their mission statement. So it's sort of a blend of differentiation. The quality of their products, the quality of their service is a little bit better than Walmart's. So they feel that they're differentiated from a Walmart. They're going after a different target market than a Walmart. A cost focus might be, if Walmart is the cost leadership broad target, a cost focus might be the dollar store. It's a smaller target market, it's more of a niche, but it is based on, the dollar store is based on buying everything for $1. So it is a cost-based approach, isn't it? A differentiation focus, or focused differentiation would be, an example would be the mom and pop store, maybe the art gallery. It is owned maybe locally. They provide higher levels of service. They provide a niche. It's very niche based. And many startup companies, the small startup companies, will choose a differentiation focus, and that's very smart to do so because, again, this is all about separating yourself from competition, to be different from competition, not the same. Or what do you add that is valuable to your customers? Low-cost producers will need to excel at cost reductions and efficiencies. So the primary focus of your strategy would be to develop cost efficiencies and maintain. That's what Walmart does throughout their operations. They try to maintain lower cost of production. You want to maximize your economies of scale, so it is about getting your demand up quickly. And you might do this through cost-effective marketing strategies, using marketing strategies that per customer cost less than others, such as social media marketing or direct mail marketing, direct email marketing. So we're going to stress reductions in overhead and administrative expenses. We're going to focus on, in everything that we do, reducing our costs, because you have to be a low-cost leader to also be a low-price leader, to be able to maintain that over time. The key to making a differentiation strategy successful is that you choose things to differentiate your product that are important to your target market. There is a special product attribute, feature, service, location, but it's important to your target market. It has to be valuable, because typically the cost of differentiation, the cost of this strategy is higher than a low-cost strategy. We're not focusing so much on reducing our costs. We're focusing more on acquiring an attribute or a service that builds customer loyalty over time. That attribute or service or point of differentiation, again, has to be valuable to your customers, and that means that they would be willing to pay more for it, because it's going to cost you more to deliver. A focus strategy can be one that's very good, especially for a small startup company, where you have a certain narrowly defined target market. You know them very well. You know what they want. You know how they shop, and you can deliver the product better than anyone else. So it can create, a high level of customer loyalty. The focus can be on just certain geographic area. You're focusing on a location. You are convenient because you are in that location. It could be on special services, or on having a broader inventory or a higher quality inventory, or focusing on just special service problems, or focusing on certain type of customer, whether it's the smaller customer or the larger business. So what we need to do is, again, find out what our strengths are, what we can do better than competition, and that's what makes a focused strategy more successful than others. The main risk of a focused strategy is that you'll have copycats. Some of the larger competitors who wait and see, look to see if you can prove that there is a market there, and they compete with you on a much bigger scale. What we have to do is be very aggressive in terms of competing by beating them to the market, so to speak. Look for possible opportunities to grow and expand the target market. As we grow, we might even consider looking for new market segments, adding new services or new products to include more market segments. So we become broader as we grow. Again, a focused approach is good for a startup company, but we have to be very aggressive in watching out for those larger companies who might steal our idea. Product lifecycle theory helps us to understand which strategies might be most effective depending on where we are in the life cycle curve. What it suggests is that products, just like humans, go through a life cycle and will eventually die out because the need for them will decline. So as our culture changes, as our consumer needs change, as technology changes, our product will also need to change, or the need for it will die out. So if you are introducing a product in the introduction phase in an emerging industry, then the strategies you would use might be quite different than if you introduce the product in the maturity phase. In the introduction phase, you're going to focus more on innovation, getting the product out there first, developing distributor relationships and supplier relationships. And in the growth and maturity phase, you're going to focus more on brand name awareness, brand name equity, of course, further differentiating your product from all the other competitors who've entered the market since the introduction phase. So as we go through the product life cycle, we're going to tweak, change our strategy. Prices tend to go down, and products tend to get more diverse, more differentiated on the market. There are more choices because there are more competitors out there. Emerging industries are those new industries that are created because of technological innovations or because of socio-cultural changes that have created new customer needs, or any other economic or sociological change that has occurred in the environment and maybe created a gap in what's available out there and what customers need. So this is brand new. There are no real rules of the game, so to speak. And there's a lot of uncertainty in this business, but also a lot of opportunity. There's risk, but there's also a lot to gain. So the companies that do well are the ones who can be what we call the firstest with the mostest out there. Get their product to the market quickly and develop relationships with suppliers and distributors very, very quickly, and that's key to being successful in an emerging industry. The key to being successful in a growth industry is to have good brand recognition and a product that is differentiated, because what we can expect as the industry grows, it will attract competition, especially if the barriers to entry are low. So those competitors who have invested money on marketing smartly and have also been able to build up a loyal customer group will benefit most, because then they can begin to see, not yet fully paid off, begin to see some economies of scale, some efficiencies that will allow them to not only have a product that is differentiated with brand name recognition, brand name awareness, brand equity, but also loyal customer base that will provide them with the efficiencies of production, the economies of scale, so that they can sell the product, especially later on, at a more competitive price and maintain their market share. Keep in mind is that as we go through the product life cycle, the rate of growth eventually declines to where it's almost zero. So you have a pie that's no longer growing. And what that means is that you're going to have to fight even harder just to maintain your market share. You'll have a lot of competitors who are fighting for a piece of the pie. So when you're working in a mature industry, it's very important that you've developed a loyal customer group, that you have brand name awareness, brand equity, and loyalty, so that you don't have to compete as much on price, because price will be big in the maturity phase. Pricing for the industry as a whole tends to go down. So it's important that you have developed the production line efficiencies and the economies of scale, so that if you do have to compete based on price, you'll still be able to meet your profit objectives. Another way to continue to grow in a mature industry is to look outside of your home country. Look internationally. Look in markets where the target market is similar to your home country's target market, and where maybe in that country the product is not in the maturity phase. Maybe it's more in the growth or even the introduction phase. So you won't have to encounter as much price competition in those areas. If you find yourself in the decline phase of the product life cycle, that's not a good place to be, is it? So you really have two choices, and one is you can focus on cost-cutting strategies to maintain profitability, or the second way is to try to come up with a way to reinvent the product, improve the product to sort of restart the product life cycle, increase overall consumer demand that way. So it may be that the product needs to be completely revamped, or if it's an idea that's just going to die, maybe you are, for example, a manufacturer of DVD players, DVD home rentals in the movie business, that eventually will die out. You'll have to look at other ways to continue to grow, and maybe that is going to movie rentals that you can instantly download, instant streaming. So you have to think about possibly gradually harvesting the business and selling off the business, unless you can reinvent the product and make it, like a new product again, go through a brand new product life cycle.